listeners, what's up? So we had a little bit of technical issues with this episode. Isaiah's local recording got corrupted, so we don't have Isaiah's audio. We do have the backup audio, and we didn't want to scrap the whole episode because we felt like there was still some good stuff in there and it was a good conversation. So we're going to use that backup audio as much as we can. I don't know how Brett's going to chop it up specifically, but if you notice some weird dips up and down of the audio quality, that's why. Sorry about that, and sorry, Brett. But the show goes on.
The DM sent the party to kill a dragon, and unfortunately, he didn't tell them that the dragon was a fire-breathing dragon. And so they all died. The end. God, that was
the best you could do.
That was the worst one. I was just like, what am I doing? That was horrible. All right, redo.
No, we're not redoing that. I refuse. Nope, I refuse to redo that. We're keeping that one in. Nope.
Oh, God. Welcome, everybody, to this very tired, shitty edition.
Could have put the Jeopardy theme behind that one.
Yeah. The Sessions Canceled podcast.
Oh my God.
Where we come up with the worst intro bits of all podcasts.
Nah, my last one was banging.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it yet.
This is a good one.
This is a good one. Damn. I am, of course, today your host, Percy Glaxon, Mercy, Meryl to Rivia, the man himself, Matt. What up? I'm here with the two boys, Josh.
I fucking guess.
And the other two boys, Isaiah.
Am I two people? That's not how it works, man.
This episode is going to be all over the place, fellas.
Isaiah,
give me a heads up.
You're gappy.
Oh, am I? Am I gappy? Damn, am I the worst Josuke? Fuck.
You're the least. You're the lesser loved Josuke, and pretty low on the totem pole in terms of the overall JoJo rating.
Damn, pain in my fucking pecco, I guess.
Ain't nobody say Gappy's their favorite. I've never heard anyone say Gappy's their favorite JoJo. Not once.
Yo,
I've never.
We're 2 minutes in. We are off to a fantastic start.
This is gonna be a great episode.
I'm sure listeners probably watch JoJo. It's relevant, I think.
Right?
So I don't know.
I understand JoJo references.
There's overlap, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Fuck. All right, dear viewers, get ready for some shit. We've all had, for the most part, a terrible fucking week.
No. Don't put the dirty laundry on the table in front of them. Keep it in the basement where nobody needs to see. Also, Matt had a great time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good time. Well, I mean, I had a good and bad time, but
mostly good.
That's not what we're talking about today. Today, in some random thought that occurred to my head, and then me being thrust into the hosting spot today, I really wanted to talk about, the idea of, like, as players and DMs, the idea of hunting monsters. Because as we all know, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is mostly a game about killing monsters.
And yet, a terrible game for hunting them.
Yeah, yes, but you can make it interesting and you can make it fun.
I don't actually think you can, but we'll get there.
I mean, yeah. Well, there's a bunch of things, and we're gonna go over probably most of them today. What you can do, and how actually there are some D&D examples in the game already of, like, hunting monsters. But I don't know, like what are your two general thoughts on, like, killing monsters? Why we do it as players? Why do DMs think it's interesting? Because I have
why we do it because the game tells you to, Matt. What?
All right, well, there's one example.
I feel like what you're thinking and what I'm thinking, I feel like we are not on the same wavelength right now.
Well, if I'm not thinking what you're thinking, and then you're not thinking what I'm thinking, then what are you thinking?
I thought we're talking about the general idea of, like, doing a monster hunting style campaign. Whereas it sounds like you're just like, LOL, fight monsters?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, because I do want to get into the actual, like, hunting monsters, what goes into that. But I want to just get your general, like, off the top of your head.
I hate this general shit you always start with, Matt. I never have an answer to you. It's just like, I don't know, fucking monster cool? Like,
all right, okay.
That's all it has to be?
I guess.
If I could, let's see. For me, as a player, I like tracking monsters down and murking monsters, because I am a chimp brain. Ask anyone that I play Conan with. I just go out murdering every once in a while. Blood for the blood god. As a GM, I fucking hate it because I feel like I suck at it because to Josh's fucking point, making hunts interesting is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Well, I also think 5e is a really bad system for it.
Yes, I mean, that is fair.
I think 5e is 5e is a dirty lying hoe who looks really good on the outside but has some questionable diseases because 5e seems like
Wizard of the Coast sponsorship. Goddamn.
because that was a little aggressive, but
Yeah.
the reason I say that is because the thing about 5e, and I don't know if this is true or not of older editions, I'll be honest. I don't know enough about older editions because this is a pretty like, you kind of need to understand the game to have this take, as it were. The thing about 5e though is like, despite on the outside looking like a great game to play your Witcher fantasies, it's actually not at all. And there's a lot of things that get in your way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I feel like part of your problem, Isaiah, is you're running you're not technically running 5e, but you're running a 5e adjacent. So, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like,
you've adopted the problem.
kind of. Yeah, it's just, I find it really hard to keep things engaging because it's like, how much do you give them? How much do you expect them to figure out? How many breadcrumbs should you like place down?
Yeah,
And-
so... sorry, finish that sentence.
It sucks because I've had players do it twice, and I've basically, I have a very loose interpretation of how I want things to go, and they almost never go according to plan. And my party does what most parties do when they don't know what to do, which is no one says anything, and it gets really awkward, and then I'm scrambling like a fucking idiot for 45 seconds before I throw the first thing that comes to my mind out of my ass.
Yeah.
Just a bad time if you're not like super prepared for it.
So I think part of the problem is if you want to live your Witcher fantasies and you want to be Geralt, right? It kind of requires that you as the GM say, here is some stuff, some info, some hints, clues, whatever, right? And then you as the player, you have to use your own brain is the problem. There is no way in the game, there are no mechanics in the game for you to like utilize, or if there are any, there's very few. There's a couple of things, but there's very few. There's no real mechanics to utilize to sort of make it cool and do the work for you, right? It's the D&D puzzle problem, right? The mechanics of D&D are to skip all of that, right? An investigation roll is not to investigate the scene, it's to skip investigating the scene and just have your character do it for you by rolling good number. Mm-hmm. Monster hunting has that same problem where you have to be like, okay, can I just roll investigation and get all the information about the scene? And you as a GM, if you want it to be a cool monster hunt, you have to say no. You have to say, tell me what you are investigating specifically, because you have to make it essentially a puzzle. And to make a puzzle interesting, there has to be, layers. You have to go step by step. You have to take it slow. You can't just let the player or the character make one investigation roll and get all the information in one fell swoop. Instead, it has to be like the player goes, okay, I'm gonna inspect the goop on the fence. Is there something magical about it? Make an Arcana roll. Tell them about the goop. All right, now I'm gonna inspect along the edges of the fence. What does anything stand out? Make an investigation roll, and you have to kind of play that game. If you were not playing that game in the campaign up until this point, like let's say there wasn't really a lot of monster hunting, and then now you decide to throw a monster hunting thing in the middle of the campaign, what ends up happening is the players go, wait, this isn't how we were playing before. Now we're playing differently, It'd be like if you're playing Smash Bros. And all the items are on. By the way, take a shot. Josh references fighting games. It'd be like if you're playing Smash Bros. And you have all the items on, and then all of a sudden you're like, now we're going to turn all the items off and play Final Destination. Let's go, bitch. And it's like, wait, that's not what we were doing before. We didn't agree to this, So that's a lot of the problem. A lot of the mechanics, again, this is a 5e specific thing I'm referring to here. A lot of the mechanics are essentially ignoring the part that would actually make the monster investigating hunting thing interesting. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's only one reason I think D&D 5e is bad for a Monster Hunter game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I do want to get into also, because there is the Witcher tabletop RPG.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know anything. I don't know much about that game beyond like some hearsay.
Yeah. Oh, I do, because we can look at that as another example.
Yeah, I've not heard much good about it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it's kind of an overcomplicated. He said
I just said none of it good.
None of it good, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Whatever I have heard from the Witcher TTRPG, it's just
overcomplicated mess is basically what I've heard.
Yeah, that's literally how I don't know how else I could have put it. Yeah.
And there goes that other sponsorship. Nice. 2 for 2, baby.
I don't even know who made that game, so.
I'm blanking on the name of the studio, but
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't know, because I do feel like a monster hunting thing it can be fun, but like you were saying, Josh, unless you were either designing or the group was already doing that, or you set it up in advance and really plan shit out. As a dungeon master, your players can get easily lost, or the threads could just fall through the cracks, and then...
Well, it's just not what we're used to the whole time, right? Like, if you've been playing the game, a 5e by default is... I go into the room, I make an investigation check. How good is the number I rolled? GM tell me all the information about the room. That's not how you can't do that with a monster hunting scenario, though, if you want to make it like really feel like a hunt, right? You can't let one investigation roll just gather all that info.
You can make it like a series of checks, or
you have to do you basically you can't rely on your character. You as a player have to now do the thing, which is not how 5e works by default. 5e works by default. I make an Arcana roll, GM tell me the info, because that's just kind of how the game is set up. And if you've been playing like that the whole time, then you have this weird expectations fuckery if all of a sudden you're not playing like that for a couple of sessions.
Yeah, I mean, it basically the way, because I have thought about this in the past, the only way I can think of doing it, which takes a, quite frankly, stupid amount of prep, is you have to treat it kind of like branching paths. So the first, it's like, overall question, GM, what do I see? And it's a flowchart. Yeah, and then you find some goop on the wall, some scratch marks on a nearby tree, some blood stains, and if you were really high, some tracks. And then it's like, okay, well, what does the goop tell me? And you got 4 things for that. What does the scratches tell me? 4 things for that. And all the branches will eventually lead to the same endpoint. It's just all the different ways of getting there. But as you can assume, that gets really out of hand really quickly.
Well, I do think one good trick for the situation, though, is rather than plan everything out to that point, just sort of say, okay, regardless of what the players do, the thing that happens at the end is going to be the same, and what they do along the way will either make their life harder or easier once they hit that endpoint, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example,
building a yam shape adventure.
Yeah, pretty much. So for example, there's this giant water snake thing in the lake. Oh, it ate the farmer's goat. All right, do all the investigating. Let's say they did shitty, didn't check the area very thoroughly, and just didn't get a lot of information. Then when they end up meeting the big snake in the lake, because that's always the end point, is fighting the snake at the end in the lake, they get fucked up real bad because there was a bunch of information they were lacking of weaknesses they could exploit, and the snake fucks them up. Other scenario, they get all that info, you still fight the snake, but now you have more tools at your disposal. That's kind of the best way to go about it. Unless they're really clever and find a way to actively dodge the fight, but you better be fucking Einstein or some shit pulling that one. If you're real big brain, sure, maybe.
that's fucking druid makes 8 spells of what is it? Call lightning, and they all just start striking the lake at the same time.
Well, no, because I would argue that still gets you to the end point. If you still have to fight the snake, he's just damaged now.
I would say that's like D&D redneck fishing. Grenades. Like, everyone call lightning now.
You know, that really is some shit that I would come up with. That's the shit that I do that like GMs that have had me are like, this is why you can't let him solve complex problems.
It's true.
Because I will do that. I absolutely would be the person that like, it's like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take, 20 pounds of dynamite. We're going to drop it roughly where we think the creature is. And then I'm going to make a bunch of scrolls of call lightning, and we're all going to cast lightning at the same time, and it's going to detonate the dynamite under the water on top of electrocuting the creature. It would get so bad.
Yeah. I mean, it is worth pointing out, though, I think another good way to try and make the monster hunting idea work is, the fight is not the actual fight with the monster. You have to, as a GM, accept that is not actually the kind of pinnacle of the situation. Like it's kind of, like when you get in a dungeon, it's not like you only care about the final boss, right? The dungeon is the showcase. You essentially have to treat a monster hunt like a dungeon. So even if your players manage to like completely dick the final fight, it's okay, because that's not really the point. The point is the whole encompassing thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because there are some players like Isaiah who will, like find a way to throw 80 pounds of dynamite into the cockatrice den, and then all of a sudden have free chicken for the night. Shit like that.
Yeah. I always think of the the silver mustard gas for the fucking fortress full of werewolves.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Exactly.
Yeah. But one of the things I was thinking of too a while ago was because like one of these examples, like why do we hunt monsters in D&D specifically? Like why do players, as a DM, why do I think it's really neat to do and make monster hunts?
I mean,
but like as a player, it's like there's like what is obviously it's like XP.
Do you mean why is it appealing?
XP. Yeah, it's like
because I would argue we don't hunt monsters in D&D. We kill monsters in D&D. We don't hunt them. We just kill them.
Right. We're going on monster hunt, killing them. Like
there's a difference. There's a difference, Matt. Trust me.
Well, I'm kind of generalizing like the whole bit because like
so the distinction here is important. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, there's a difference between. Okay, let's put it this way: if you have a gun, right, in real life, if you have a gun and you go to, a 1 acre plot of land with no trees or cover, and there's a fence all the way around it, and there's a deer in the middle of that 1 acre plot of land, and you shoot that deer with the gun, you did not hunt that deer. You killed that deer, but you did not hunt that deer, Whereas if you go into the woods and track it for 3 hours and then kill it, you hunted the deer.
Right. Well, this general question is just leading me into like, why do we hunt monsters? Like, what's the end goal for players and stuff?
Okay,
like,
so if I may,
yeah.
I think the question is, why do players like the big monster specifically?
Okay, well, so that feels like a separate thing though, or a separate question. Because what I'm saying is, Matt, you're saying why do we hunt monsters, and my counter is we don't. We don't hunt monsters in 5e. You just kill them. You don't actually hunt them. Now, why do we want? Why is the idea of doing the hunting part appealing? That's a different thing. That's its own. That's like a separate question. You know what I'm saying? And then why is the big monster enticing is like also kind of a separate question. You know what I'm saying?
Sick. I don't even feel like I'm hosting.
Do you get what I mean though? Like, or am I just do it like?
No, I do.
No, I mean,
I think you're nitpicking for no reason.
It's not. No, it's. Well, but that's the thing. It's not. That's what. It's not nitpicking because it's what I was talking about at first. It was what I was talking about in the first place. Why I'm saying 5e seems like a good game for hunting monsters, but actually isn't. Like it kind of lies to you because these distinctions are what take it from A to B. Like the distinctions are what make the difference. Because just walking down a hallway into a big room and fighting a boss is not the same thing as what you do in The Witcher 3 when you get a monster contract, right? Those aren't the same.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's not nitpicking. It's like it seems like nitpicking on like the surface, but when you start to break it down, the difference matters. Is
right. I guess. All right. So I guess I failed in my original question was like, I guess.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying your original question is actually, I think, 3 questions is really what I'm saying.
Yeah, because like.
So which one do you want me to answer first?
I want to talk about, because at some point I do want to talk about like making monster bits into magical bits type of deal. But like that could be, I don't know, a later on type of topic or whatever. Because that is kind of what I was like angling of, like one of the things of like why players like killing monsters. But I guess that is a different thing than hunting monsters.
Well, Isaiah, I guess start with where you were going with your distinction.
Well, so if we're coming at it from the question of why do players like taking down the big monster, to get weirdly like profound, I think it's just something built into humans. Like there's something very David and Goliath about it, right? Like I'm tiny thing taking on big thing, for I am, a badass, or power, friendship, or so have you. Like there's a.
You see a tall tree, you want to climb it. You see a big boulder, you want to climb it. Yeah,
kind of something like that. Yeah, like you see a massive obstacle that seems unachievable, and then you go, I bet, and you strap on a sword. So I think that's probably what it is. And in games like 5e, you're not actually committing murder on an ancient being. And you're getting paid for it with, potentially gold, XP, and whatever bits you can rip off the thing to make into a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue you're not really being. It sounds dramatic, but you're not really being that dramatic, because it is true. There's an innate human urge to do it doesn't even necessarily have to be the David and Goliath thing so much as just the innate human urge to like overcome the challenge. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
And also, I think the big monster fight is the number one fantasy that D&D sells at the end of the day. Like when
quite literally,
yeah, like I mean, it's literally called Dungeons and Dragons, right? So it's like the 2 things we're selling here is big monster in room. It's funny, I heard someone say it really shouldn't be, if they wanted to name the game really literal, they would call it places and things. Or things in places, because that's really what it is, right? Big thing in place that I fight, right? Dungeon in a dragon in a dungeon. So yeah, I think when it comes to D&D, it's appealing to do the big monster fight, because it is literally the primary fantasy that the game was based on originally. Because before they had the game, they had chainmail, and chainmail is army versus army, soldier shoots soldier. D&D is like, what if we focused in on the soldiers and had the soldiers overcome like a big obstacle? So it goes from being this big battlefield to now we're shrinking way down into a room and we're focusing on one specific fight. And since the dawn of the game, the most interesting fights have been shit like beholders and dragons and demon lords, which are all big monsters. It's like, it's really, really intrinsic to the game.
Yeah.
But all that being said, all of that just involves killing and not the hunting. The hunting part is not actually that intrinsic to the game, which is kind of weird, but true in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's right. So that, the game almost designs for the destination and not the journey.
Right, exactly. Yes, that is actually the best way to put it. Yeah, the game is designed for the destination.
Because you wouldn't call an NPC in Tavern Keeper's like, oh yeah, go kill all the rats in my basement. That's not a monster hunt. That's just, a kill quest.
Yes, exactly.
That's a level 1 quest.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but like if it's like, oh yeah, there's this, band of orcs or something, or a band of ogres, like whatever, in the town, there's been a problem. Can you go out there, find them, kill them, bring me their heads? Is that a monster hunt, or is that just a side quest to go kill some?
So I think the distinction,
another kill quest. Sorry.
I think the distinction for me is how you get to the final goal, right? Like D&D by default, generally it's like, hey, I need you to kill these ogres for me. Okay. We go out. Oh, the ogres are in their lair. Okay, we enter the lair. We do the lair thing. We find them at the back in the big room. We kill the ogres. That's just standard D&D. That's a kill quest. If part of the quest is, hey, I need you to fix this ogre problem for me, I don't know where the ogres are or where they're hiding or where they're coming from. So step one, the first step is even figuring out, or it might not even be ogres, right? Like step one is something is killing my goats. I don't know what's killing my goats. Step two, all right, we figured out it's ogres. Okay, where are the ogres? I don't know where the ogres are. Investigate the scene. All right, we might have an idea. Okay, now that we know where the ogres are, track them to their lair. Okay, we found the lair. Now we need to try and find them within the lair. Like that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, and it's breaking up into little,
it becomes
different tasks, different skills that you have to use.
It becomes more about the journey, like Isaiah was saying. When the focus of the like fighting the monster is about the journey, and not just the fight at the end, then it turns into more of a hunt vibe, right? Like a lot of, again, The Witcher being the easiest comparison here. In the Witcher game, when you get a monster contract, the first thing you have to do is be like, all right, I got to go to the site where somebody said they saw a funny thing and figure out, based on this description that this one peasant gave me, that it was a dude with a big ass and teeth, which doesn't help me very much. I have to go look around and investigate the kills.
A dude with a big ass.
I have to go investigate the kill site.
Did you mean to say with big ass teeth?
No. I said big. No. I meant what I said.
It's a reverse vampire, just has a big ass.
Yeah.
Go find the werewolf with the massive dumpy.
yeah. Right.
Damn,
so it's like,
boy, over here.
Yeah, or like the thing where it's like, there's a noon wraith, and some lady describes how a child got lifted in the air and then ripped apart, and you're like, well, that doesn't really tell me a lot, so I have to go to the location, and step one is figure out what I'm even dealing with. And that's how most of the Witcher contracts go, right? Is like, because you're talking to a bunch of dumb peasants, no offense to the peasants, but it'd be like that sometimes. Because you're talking to a bunch of dumb peasants, you're like, I need to figure out what the fuck they're even talking about, because they just described me some big dog man with a fat ass, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's a wolf. It's totally a wolf. Meanwhile, in the end quest, it's a lion. You're just like, son of a bitch.
You see oh man, I hate that I made that joke.
What a good movie that was, wasn't it?
Oh my God.
Well, no, you know what it is. It's like, it's a dog thing with a fat ass, and then you find out it's a werewolf that has a thorax like a spider.
Oh, that's where this was going.
Yeah. That's not what the original thought was, but that's where I'm going with it now.
I know. I just
He's got a giant ant thorax.
I was wondering. I'm like, okay, he keeps talking about someone with a fat ass. What are we doing here?
It's a drider. It's a werewolf drider.
Yeah.
Oh, Sam's not here for this. Don't put this out into the universe.
Drider,
it's a werewolf
space spider drider.
Werewolf space spider drider. Yeah.
But yeah, that does add to, because if you think about like D&D right now, you have role playing, combat, the two biggest pillars of the game, and then you have the third pillar, which is supposed to be exploration. And most people agree that within 5e, at least at the moment, that exploration is probably the weakest pillar of the game.
Matt, did we listen to the same episode of the Eldritch Lorecast?
No, what?
Oh, okay, because they talked about this very recently.
Oh shit!
And like the last episode before.
Because like besides like obviously like you explore a dungeon and all that, or like you go out into the woods and do a hex crawl like Tomb of Annihilation.
Okay.
I love that shit, but like I don't think I'd be able to run it well.
So here's the thing. This is where things start to get complicated, but this will wrap back around to the monster hunting situation. The thing about exploration, and I'm just gonna steal this quote. This is from Sean Merwin. I'm just gonna rip this right out of his fucking mouth because it's a good quote. Exploration is going from the known to the unknown, right? That can mean a lot of things. Mm-hmm. The problem right now that 5e has is a lot of people, when they say exploration, really are talking about travel.
Right.
Which is not actually what anyone really gives a shit about. They just think they give a shit about it, but it's not really what you give a shit about, right?
That's why there's like 30 videos on YouTube of how to make traveling interesting.
Right.
And most people by the end of the video just say, just skip it.
Just skip it. Exactly.
Just fuck it.
Because what you want isn't the travel. It's the exploring the thing, right? Exploring the weird thing. When you're playing
the deep dark forest or the ruins of the ancient dungeon or whatever the fuck, Ice Mountain.
When you're playing Elden Ring, the fun part is not running from point A to point B on your hack, right? That's not the fun part. The fun part is running around on your hack named Torrent, and then you see a weird thing over to your left and being like, what the fuck is that? And then you walk over and it's a random dungeon with a boss in it, right? That's the fun part in Elden Ring. That's the thing people...
Finding things out in the open, or not out in the open, but finding things as you're exploring from A to B, looking at all the different new sites. Same thing with like Skyrim or any kind of old game like that.
Yes. That's the part people actually want. So, when we come back around to the monster hunting thing, what's appealing about the monster hunt is that's the whole point of a hunt.
Yeah.
I don't have the information. I'm going to survey the area and gain the information to then do the thing.
I'm going into the unknown to find a thing.
Part of the reason dungeons are fun is because I don't know what's in this dungeon. I don't know what's in every room. I don't know what's around the corners. I'm checking doors. I'm checking corners. I'm using my torch. I'm snuffing my light to sneak around. I'm checking for trap. That's
using
all
my
the good
10-foot pole to see.
Using my 10-foot pole. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's where it gets fun. And that's why the monster hunting idea sounds like a good idea. Or it not even sounds like it is a good idea. It is fun. It's just 5e fights you.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of, like you're saying, there's a lot of setup on the DM's part to make it fun and engaging for players.
It's a lot of setup.
Want to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of setup on the DM. The players have to be willing to tackle this problem themselves, right? Like you can't like rely on your stats a lot of the time if you want to make it actually interesting.
Right.
And then there's the other problem. And I think this is one of D&D's biggest problems. Sometimes magic just ruins the fun.
Oh, like detect magic or
spells,
like
just
locate objects.
Spells sometimes just ruin the fun, you know?
Right. Well, that gets into like the lower to like mid-tier play. That's when you can do all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, you can do some of it. Like, let's say there's a monster and for some reason it's immune to like divination spells. And your players are like, well, we have to go into the abyss. I don't know what the fuck is in there, but we got to go in and find it at level 20 players. And then you could do something like that. But that's just kind of like nonsense at that point.
I've been a little quiet. I've been quiet for a little while. It can ruin the fun if you panic when it comes up, right? Because it's like, oh, like we have to track this monster, and then you cast locate creature. And it's like, oh fuck, well now we know where the monster is. And they just sort of completely illegitimized all of the clues I had set up. Yes, however, there are workarounds you can do, right? Like there's always that part in a hunt where the creature it runs. And then there's the chase. So the chase can then become like the new aspect that keeps things interesting and it like keeps the fun alive. It's not easy to do. I'm not saying that like just put in a chase sequence because that has its own fucking slew of problems. But it doesn't have to ruin the fun. It is a possibility, though. I'm not going to pretend like it'll never happen.
Yeah. And at least with like some of the spells, like locate creature, locate object, it has to be something you're familiar with. So like if you're fighting a monster or trying to hunt a monster, you have nothing. Like, you just have a drawing in a book and whatever the farmer tells you. You can't use your spell for that.
Well,
you're just gonna be like, well, I don't know what the fuck.
You get into a gray area if you have a drawing, because you could argue that's familiar. But at lower levels, what you're saying, Isaiah, is fine. The problem is when you get into higher levels of D&D, some of the spells just become give me what I fucking want buttons.
Damn, I cast wish to bring the monster to me.
Yeah,
you're not wrong. I do think that they should be, but
or another good one is legend lore, right? GM, just tell me what it is and what it does and where it is, right? Like legend lore is just tell me all the info about the monster right now, So, which this kind of ties in the other reason I think 5e is actually kind of a shit game for this is the ramp up of 5e. Because, you're playing The Witcher, you expect Geralt's gonna fight some griffins, maybe a dragon occasionally, some Leshens, drowners, right? All that good stuff. Those are all, CR 10 and below monsters, maybe. Maybe the dragon's a little bit higher, but not, depends. When you start getting into the higher levels of D&D, the kind of shit you're fighting is like beyond monster hunting levels and is now gone into the place of like extraplanar demons and angels and demigods and robots from like fucking built by the ancient ones, right? Like it gets so crazy that it becomes really hard to reasonably like, all right, guys, we're going to do a monster hunt on the Demogorgon. You know what I mean?
Just a plane hopping monster hunt.
Yeah,
hopping from plane to plane.
It gets really
this thing.
Yeah,
I mean that does sound cool if you could do it well.
Maybe, but the ramp up of things you fight in D&D, right? The rate at which it starts to get crazy in D&D is so like. I mean, when you get to level like 15, I fucking, you're fighting titans and shit. Like it gets so wild that it's not really a monster hunt anymore so much as it's like it's like a, I don't even know what to call it, but it's a monster fight, but the hunting part gets kind of like it doesn't really jive. So I think if you were to try and do it with 5e, you would have to kind of keep things sub level 10,
Well, yes, for the most part, yes, I agree. But there is something cool to say about like the Shadow of the Colossus style. It's not really a hunt, but it's a journey, right? Like in Shadow of the Colossus, you have to cross the plains and climb the cliffs and ascend the towers and move across the desert and shit like that to get to the thing. So then the game becomes, it's not, oh, we have to find it. It's like, oh my God, we have to get to this thing and we need to fight it. Fuck, It's all fun and games until the players are climbing up a 1,000-foot tall mountain, and then one of them goes, "Can we just teleport?" And then they teleport, and it goes wrong, and they teleport to a different mountain range that's 100 miles away again, and they're like, "Oh my God, I want to go home," Or if they do teleport to the top of the mountain, congrats, you still have to fight the fucking thing, like.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about the about sort of transitioning from one vibe to another vibe. That's a thing. But I think the other thing about like higher level play is, when you're doing a campaign, right? You always need to, you need to justify. Why are my players going out and killing things, going into dungeons, doing quests, right? You always need to justify, you need a reason. And at lower levels, justifying a monster hunt, pretty easy. We're going to get the job. It's harassing the town. We'll get paid, blah, 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 right? Sure. By the time you get over level 10, you start to become like, your local legends and stuff. So you probably should be dealing with bigger things. And it becomes a little hard to justify like, go kill the werewolf for me, again, like it gets a little like keeping if you want the whole campaign to be about that, keeping it on that focus becomes tricky as levels get higher. You know what I mean? Especially because, the local peasant isn't going to ask you to kill an angel for them, right? Mm-hmm. They'll ask you to go save their baby from the werewolf, but if the local peasant's like, I'll pay you 100 gold to go punch Raphael in the face, that's a little weird.
Yeah, actually, can we like side step for a minute about angels and celestial creatures stat blocks, like in general? Like, unless you're running an evil campaign or you're using one of those things as an NPC, why the fuck, like, do they have all these like in the monster manual, there's only like 3 angel stat blocks, and that's fine. But then you get into shit like Ravnica, and now these, like, God knows how many books have come out now. Like, am I supposed to be fighting these good things? I'm not running an evil campaign.
Yes, I'm gonna tell you why. We see a lot of times in like legends and shit of, you know, the test of the gods.
Yeah.
So it would make sense for the plane. You know, if you're a level 20 party, the Planetar descends from the heavens and is like, okay, you think you're cool enough to high five God? You gotta go through me first. You know, shit like that. It's actually, yeah, it's like if you take it from
like
the
trials, like
yeah, like if you take it from the idea of why am I murdering a paragon of good, it does get a little weirdly noodly because most of D&D is being a good guy, but yeah, I mean, just fighting them is not it. Like I would expect for a level 20 party, fighting an angel probably is not that uncommon. Killing them probably is.
Yeah.
Like if you, let's say for some reason the players are fucking mad lads and you let them plane hop for a while and they go to Mount Celestia and the fucking Solar is like, guys, go away. And they're like, but we want to make it up the mountain. He's like, I'm going to shoot you with the fucking heavenly bow. And they have to fight him for a little bit before they're like, okay, you know what? We're just going to leave. We're just going to leave. And he's like, yeah, that's what I fucking thought, bitch.
yeah.
So
also Theros has a lot of things that are not, they're like divine, but they're not, you know.
Yeah, no, Theros had a lot of angels. I think in Volo's guide they put a bunch like I forgot what it's called, the golden dragon horse thing. I'm blanking on its fucking name.
Kieran.
Thank you, Kieran.
Hey, you want to know how many Celestials are in Theros? 2.
3, right? Oh.
2.
Wait, what? No, Archon of the Falling Stars, Ashen
Oh, if you
Rider,
count the mounts,
Winged
there's
Bull,
4.
and Winged Lion. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
If you count the things
mounts.
they're riding, there's 4. Here's the thing. First of all, yes, I was gonna say what Isaiah was gonna say. Usually you're fighting them as like a trial or a test, or they're a guardian or something like that. But also, the amount of Celestials in the game is incredibly small.
It's annoyingly so.
It is the smallest monster type by far.
Besides, like, I don't know, plants maybe.
No,
Plants are actually pretty expansive, believe it or not.
Celestial is the smallest one by far. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Oozes are the smallest.
16, okay, 17, 18, 19,
No, that
20,
makes sense because like how many
21,
oozes do you really fucking need?
Not many.
There's 26 angels in total. And one,
Okay.
actually, no, sorry, there's 25 angels in total because one of them's the Tasha's summon spirit. So there's 25 angel stat blocks, which is nothing in comparison to all the other types of stat blocks. So there's really
comparison to humanoid.
yeah. Yeah.
Dragons.
So
Jesus.
that's the first thing. There's not that many angels. And like Isaiah said, yes, you're generally fighting them as like a test and stuff. And also, even if you're not running an evil campaign, you could have an angel go mad. You could have an angel be a traitor. You could have a Kieran just
corrupted.
decide to fuck your shit up because of Kieran Angie. You could have a Pegasus just attack you because it's an animal.
A giraffe. It got mad.
You called it a giraffe. You know, or you could have a unicorn attack the party because the unicorn thinks they're desecrating the land and it's actually a big mix-up and it's like, no, we weren't the ones who did it. And then the unicorn attacks them, right? Like, there's a lot of ways you could justify it. I don't think there's any reason to, like, not utilize angels.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, because it's always just been like a weird thing. Because I think in my last
I think it's
campaign,
fine.
I think I used them an angel stat block once.
I mean, yeah, you might not use it a lot because dealing with celestial stuff is kind of funky, but it's still, there's still reasons to do it.
Yeah.
Also,
for me, you know, the thing that I want out of because I want more celestial stat blocks.
yeah,
And I want stuff that's kind of outside the
the norm.
usual scope of, like, you know, Greco-Roman / Christian stuff.
Angels,
you know?
yeah.
Oh,
Like we have Coatl, which is cool because, you know, we got some Mesoamerican stuff in there. So that's kind of cool. You know, the Kieran is East Asian. That's pretty cool. But I want more like. Go on.
I was gonna say, I think in Radiant Citadel they added something.
I would like to
because
also point out, by the way, the Guildmasters angels are like not like, one of them's Aurelia, which isn't even an angel. She's a planeswalker person who has like angel ability or whatever. So like
What?
some of the Celestials aren't even really Celestials in the traditional sense.
Yeah, and actually, the more traditional sense, kind of, if you look at the Matt Colville angels, they get fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like from the Strongholds and Followers book. It's really like the whole like idea of like just wings and eyes.
Yeah. Also,
it looks like
Isaiah.
we have some like potentially like the Pari.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to tell you. Yeah,
Yeah, Hindu.
That's a Hindu style angel.
Yeah, and Atash looks almost Mesopotamian. Don't crucify me, internet. He's evoking really big Gilgamesh vibes, which is sick.
Oh.
I'm actually gonna look him up real quick.
I had to hold back on Gilgamesh so badly. You have no idea.
No.
Anyway, that was a random tangent.
Gilgamesh.
God.
Why are you like this?
Oh man.
Yeah, guys. So go hunt the angels for the gods. They'll thank you later. Plain hunt them through Mount Celestia.
That might be a little odd.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess because we've been talking about a little bit with this monster hunting stuff. So like obviously like gigantic, mega, huge with a capital U inspiration. Obviously The Witcher, the game, the book, the show. But like obviously, another big one because Monster Hunt. What about the Monster Hunter games? Like you think that like you can like again pull the Matt method of just I'm just gonna take this chunk, throw it in my 5e, and just jerry rig the shit out of it until it's functional?
God, I
short
wish.
answer, not
No.
easily.
No.
I
With
think
Monster Hunter, it's like the different, obviously, body parts of the monsters, using different weapons, the oils, the tracking the monster in the location. Like, it's a lot.
It is a lot, but that's actually not even really the problem necessarily. Okay. I've gone. I think I've said this on recording before. I think Monster Hunter as a video game is almost impossible to emulate in a tabletop sense. I think it's basically an unachievable goal, and if you try and tackle it, good luck.
I don't necessarily think it's impossible, but I will give you that it's probably incredibly difficult.
It's very hard.
A lot of people have tried. Like, there's
Many
like,
people
if you
have
just type
tried.
in D&D 5e Monster Hunter World or whatever, you'll get a million different like PDFs and shit.
There's a couple of things with Monster Hunter. First of all, Monster Hunter isn't. When people talk about wanting to do like a monster hunting campaign in D&D, generally the vibe they're thinking of is The Witcher, not Monster Hunter, because the vibe of Monster Hunter is not like I said before we started recording. It's more like you're hunting kaijus. It's not, like I'm gonna talk to this peasant woman and she's gonna tell me about how her baby got eaten and I'm gonna find out it's a werewolf. Monster Hunter is, there's a giant fucking lizard that shoots magma out there. Go kill his ass and take his scales for me, please, to make yourself a lizard sword. And
but that'd be like a cool, that is a cool campaign idea.
So the problem
was like the main campaign.
There's no plot to Monster Hunter. The plot is just you go out into random areas and kill wildlife. There's no
The American style.
Basically. There's very little. There's not a lot of there's very minimal justifying in the Monster Hunter games why you're doing it. It's very anime in the sense of it's like a tournament arc, but instead you're killing monsters. You're just kind of going out and fighting them, and then you take their scales to make armor and swords and shit. And the hunting part, the tracking them down, it is there, but it's not the whole game. It's not the focus of the game. The focus of the game is fighting them and all of the different things they do and the weird moves and shit they have. The focus is different. And the big thing with Monster Hunter is a lot of the Monster Hunter games, a lot of the feel, a lot of the things that people find appealing is big weapon, smash big monster. And that's really, I can't think of any way to make that work in a tabletop game, because part of the fun of Monster Hunter is the tactile feeling of how it feels to control that game. The actual, and I mean very literally, the controls. Like, there is a feeling of pressing the button and seeing the big wind up and hitting and getting the big damage and being stuck in your frames of animation and not being able to roll out if you commit too hard to a swing, and like the controls of climbing up on a monster's back and shanking him in the head with a knife so he falls over. Like, a lot of Monster Hunter is actually about the tactileness of the controls of the game. And you don't have a controller in a tabletop game. So, yeah. You can emulate pieces of Monster Hunter, but you can't really get the whole core of the experience because it's just fundamentally a different thing. And quite frankly, I don't think tabletop games should try to emulate everything under the sun. I think certain things you need to lean in, like, you should always lean into the strength of the medium you're in, right? The strength of movies is different than the strength of books. So when you're writing a book, you should lean into what you can utilize in a book, versus when you're making a movie, you should lean into the strength of a movie. You don't have shot composition in a book, for example, but you don't have dramatic prose in a movie. Monster Hunter, you have the controls. Tabletop, you don't. So you need to rely on the sort of the random chaos nature of tabletop and the sort of the fun of stats and numbers. So it's really it's very complicated,
right?
And
oh no, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's really what it comes down to. I can't think of any way that you could really do it. You could do pieces of it, but I don't think you could ever get the whole package.
Probably not, yeah.
I mean, maybe one day I'll be proven wrong, but for right now.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea. And then thinking about just from Storm King's Thunder, and like, we've had a ranger and using that to, again, not exactly a monster hunt, but we have had to track down giants constantly in the game. And another thing, like, hunting monsters, hunting giants, Shadows of the Colossus. And I didn't even realize that 5e already had rules for climbing on giant monsters.
It does.
Built into the game.
They're okay.
They're okay.
It's really the problem with the problem with 5e is the way the combat is fundamentally designed is not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not conducive really to doing the Shadow of the Colossus thing. Me and Isaiah have talked about this a bunch. Like the whole grid-based tactical like chessboard combat is just not really conducive to the style of like Shadow of the Colossus climb up on the big monster, hit him in the weak point thing. Like you can kind of do it, but it's kind of clunky and weird. It's just like you would have to redesign the system if you wanted it to be like, if you wanted it to feel really satisfying, you'd have to design it with that intention in mind from the ground up. You can't really patchwork it on.
I feel like the rules that James Hayek posted. God, it's like
D&D Beyond. Yeah,
so like it hit the weak point for massive damage rules. I think those are pretty conducive. Like I haven't used them yet, but they seem pretty intuitive. They seem like they would work pretty well.
Yeah, I ended up using them on my big bad evil full boss fight for my campaign. It was so fucking cool.
It's cool. The problem is you're still, at the end of the day, you're still sort of strapped down by the chessboard grid nature of the combat, Like you can't ignore that.
I mean, you can and you can't. Like,
because you can ignore descriptions and stuff in there, like what's it doing to hide the weak spot, or what can players do on the grid board to like find where the weak point is? Because you could just be like, oh, make a perception check. What if it's like, all right, if the players are staying to the left, they're never going to find the weak point because it's hidden on the right wing, so of the dragon, let's say. So they have to go to the right side of the map and then make the perception check or whatever check you want to fucking throw, and then they find the weak spot. And it's like, oh, you have to jump through some hoops, but they're not. It's not that difficult. You just gotta add some stuff.
Sure, although then you're getting into the space of then you're talking about monster facing, which is not in the game by default, right? So now you're sort of tacking on side rules to make the thing work,
Right. Again, but if you do it for like one combat or one special,
no,
you're sort of already doing that.
You are,
by nature of homebrewing anything. So like,
you are. I'm just saying,
a penny in for a pound.
the more you have to tack on side things, the clunkier things tend to get, you know what I mean? As opposed to it being part of the plan from the beginning. So yeah, it's like you can do it and keep adding to it, but be aware that there's like a eventually the camel's back will break when you keep dropping those straws on there with reckless abandon.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, unfortunately, I've thought about the Monster Hunter, like the game, like how might you make it work in 5e, and like it just seems like a no-go. And I've thought a lot about trying to do a like hunting focused campaign. Bro, I don't even know.
Yeah, I had an idea a while back of doing specifically a dragon hunting campaign.
Oh god.
You are a team of dragon hunters, and you go out fighting different dragons and trying to hunt them, and literally doing the Monster Hunter thing of bringing the scales back and the meat and all that shit and the bones and Skyrim armoring yourself.
Yeah, that's
a whole lot.
You're adding a whole nother layer there too.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So it's again a lot of work on the DM part to like make this a thing.
I think I just need somebody to make a tabletop game where this was, the plan from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just need somebody to make the monster hunting tabletop game, and I haven't seen it yet. And every game that I've thought about how I could try and use this, I keep being like, well, you could. There's this, and then that kind of works. And then this kind of like everything is like close but no cigar. And the only one I've thought of where I've like been like, I think I could make it work with this game has been Dungeon World, but there's still some stuff in there where I'm like, oh, that would be annoying.
All right, everybody take another shot.
Yeah, take another shot. It's true though, because I've thought about because I do want to do a campaign like this, and I am probably going to try at some point to force a square peg in a round hole and make it happen. But, but it won't be 5e. I'll tell you that.
Actually, now getting back to like the thing of because of hunting monsters, collecting the bit, killing monsters, collecting bits, whatever you want to call it. But like, I don't know, what is something that you guys have always wanted to do? Like hunt a monster, fight a monster, kill a monster, take its pieces back and like make it into either a potion or like cloaks. Because like in my last campaign, my buddy Chris obsessively asked me for a cloak of displacement, and so when I finally gave him the chance for the party to go fight and find Displacer Beast, hunt them in the Feywild, he killed one, finally got his cloak. It was just like, yes, finally I got the thing, I got this magic I've always wanted. But like the game, besides like the cloak of displacement, there's not like a lot of good options of like magic items made from other monsters. Besides like you have dragon scale armor. Obviously, that's going to be the big, super shiny, important ones.
Yeah.
But besides the cloak of displacement, like, what else do you have besides like going out looking at homebrew shit?
You have to look at earlier editions basically, because a lot of earlier editions, like the Draconomicon, had fucking everything in it that you would need, and I think there's awesome.
Also, I think the potion of giant strengths, I think, are actually made with pieces of giants.
You did a giant's toenail.
Giants toenail, yeah.
Fucking grody as shit.
Yeah, the problem with the turning the item into, so this is the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to like dig for that information. So if a player is like, I want to make this magic item, and you don't know where they could reasonably get the components, you have to like dig to try and find something that fits. Yeah. So like, for example, the giants thing, if you look at the giant stat block and the giant lore, it does not say that. The only reason Isaiah knows that is because he read the description for the magic item and he read the whole thing. And it mentions at like the very end, there's a giant's toenail in there or whatever. So it's like, you have to kind of dig pretty hard for that information. So it makes it hard when a player wants to do it and you're not really sure what to do. So really, if they wanted that to be a component of the game, which is kind of weird because it seems like they sort of do and they sort of don't, right?
Yeah,
because the magic item rules in Xanathar's, like crafting a magic item,
they're so fucking good. Yeah,
so well, no, they're not. They're okay.
No, fuck you. I disagree. They're so good. Come on.
They're fine. But one of the problems it says is, your players should have to find, a rare ingredient to make the magical item. But a lot of the magic items, they don't tell you how it would be made.
Yeah, that goes into the 5e vagueness of like, it's up to the DM.
Yeah,
it could be anything, even a boat.
Like, if they wanted that to be a component of the game, what they should have said was, or what they should have done was, on every monster stat block, or not every, but a lot of monster stat blocks, put things that can be harvested from this monster and list out a bunch of shit you could potentially harvest and what magic item it could be used for.
There are so many outside sources that do
outside sources. Why does the game not do it?
Oh, I know, because I think you're kind of right. I think they're like, they don't want to fully dip their toes into like harvesting monster bits, but the game is about killing monsters, so we're just like, we'll maybe give some items but not really go in depth. And then if you look at like DM's Guild, there's so many PDFs. Like the big one that everyone knows is the Hamun's Harvesting Handbook, a complete guide to harvesting and crafting in D&D 5e. That's a big one that a lot of fucking people use. It's clearly on the front page of the DM's Guild constantly.
Yeah.
I know I've downloaded a bunch of different like PDFs when I use monster hunting rules, or like the Sane's Guide to Magic Items, which give a price of every fucking magic item in the game. Well, the DM's Guild, not DM's Guild, sorry, the Dungeon Master Guide items.
Yeah, it's like, what it says for the Xanathar's rules is an item invariably requires an exotic material to complete it. This material can range from the skin of a yeti to the vial of water taken from a whirlpool of the elemental plane of water. Finding the material should be part of an adventure. And it's like, okay, sure.
I mean, they give it a couple examples. So literally, it's like, here's some example ideas, so you can kind of like imagine up your own shit,
For some of the items, they do. Right. For some of the items, that's not too bad, right? Oh, how do I make a bowl of command water elementals? Oh, you have to get some water from the plane of from the material plane of water and like cast a ritual on it. Sure. Okay. Yeah, we can make that work. But how about when your player wants an all-purpose multi-tool? What the fuck you build that out of?
Oh, that's simple. You just gotta kill like 8 Modrons.
Because that's what happened to me, Isaiah, Matt. That's what happened to me is Isaiah wanted to build the Artificer fucking Sonic Screwdriver magic item that is the all-purpose tool or whatever. And I was like,
That's the one from Tasha's, right?
Yeah. And I was like, I can't reasonably think of what that might, like, I was like, I don't know where you're going to find pieces to make that, you know? So like, yeah, sometimes it's fine.
Yeah.
But there's also, and then there's a bunch of magic items that are like weird weapons, or like, what do you make? How do you make an alchemy jug? Like get magical mayonnaise? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that or like find a, like, again, just spitballing off the top of my head. You find a dwarven crafter who's like just loves pottery. And so he gives you the special clay in order to make. Sure,
but then you're not. But then you're not doing the monster hunting thing of carving it off the monster to make the material, to use the materials.
Well, again, yeah, you can't. I don't know really a monster unless you want to, like, I don't know,
a mayonnaise elemental
of like, you gotta kill a fire elemental and spill its blood on a pot, and then it becomes an alchemy jug. And it's like, why a fire elemental? It's
yeah,
like, I don't know. Shrug.
That's what I'm saying. So like. That's why it's like, if you guys want this to be a thing, you guys being the designers, then a lot of monster stat blocks should say, oh, you can use this to turn it into this in the stat block, that'd be way better. There's that one snail thing. Is it the flail snail? I think it's the flail snail.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Right?
Oh, my players got that. Yeah.
Is it that one that says you can like harvest its shell to make like a shield, right?
Yeah, it can make 2 or 3 shields of anti-magic or some shit, or 1 cloak of stars.
Yeah. Oh yeah, here it is.
It's nuts.
A flail snail shell weighs about 250 pounds and has numerous uses. An intact shell can sell for 5,000 GP. Many hunters seek the shell for the anti-magic. A skilled armorer can make 3 shields for 1 shell. Yeah.
Oh, 3 shields. Yeah. Wait.
Why?
Can I just tell you?
Huh?
Can I just tell you real quick about one of my players? So they found one early in the campaign, and didn't have enough money to get it like broken down into, because they wanted to originally turn it into 3 shields. And so they were trying to save up all the money in order to trade it to a blacksmith who can break it down into 3 shields. And then as a big like lull, because they forgot about it, I had a bad guy NPC come in, rob their house, and stole it. And then when they're like, no, fuck you, Matt. No, we got to go kill him. They killed him, but he already had turned the shell into the Cloak of Stars.
Nice.
So they're like, oh, I was like, guys, you got your shell back. I mean, it's a cloak now. He did the work for you. And they're like, no, Matt, that's not what we wanted. It was so fucking funny.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
like, that's what I mean.
Sorry,
like, great stories like that. That shit, like the flail snail, should be on more monsters or most monsters. Like, why does it doesn't say anywhere on the Displacer Beast information that you could turn a Displacer Beast into a Cloak of Displacement. Why not? It should say that. Right. It should give you rules for how to turn a Displacer Beast into a Cloak of Displacement.
It doesn't say it in the little lore text in the.
No.
Oh shit! I thought it did.
No, it doesn't say shit. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
The flail snail, it gave you very specific, like, this is how much it's worth. This is how many shields you can make, right? Like, that's great.
That's nuts.
So it's like, why is that not there in more places? And if you as a player don't, or let's say you're a GM and you're throwing the Displacer Beast at your players and you don't know the Cloak of Displacement is an item, right? Like, you're not aware of it for whatever reason. Wouldn't it be great if you saw the little text, can be turned into a Cloak of Displacement, and then you as a GM could go, oh, what's that? And then you look it up and like, oh, that's a cool magic item. I'll give that to my players if they skin the fucking Displacer Beast. Like, it's just so weird to me that they didn't do, like, they did it they very occasionally do it, but not, like, they don't commit to it. It's just why?
Sort of happens.
Yeah, it's so weird to me. I don't understand. Like, it just, I don't know. It bugs that bugs the hell out of me. And yes, I know. Oh, just use homebrew third-party DMs Guild forehead. It's like, I don't really feel like fishing through all the homebrew bullshit to do all this. I would just like it to work.
Yeah, I mean, if it's on the front page of the DMs Guild, like if you look at like the ones where it's like, oh, most popular, or most of those 9 times out of 10 are
I know,
cool.
but it's like, man, I'm already doing so much work. I don't want to have to do more work to like make the game obey me.
I don't know. I don't know how much I agree with that. Like,
yeah, no, it's not really like making the game obey you. It's like, hey, this resource or this part of the game that I really want to engage with is not really well, like, fleshed out. So I'm gonna have to find something else, and you do some light Googling, and eventually you'll have a bunch of people through the D&D Reddit or other websites or Discord servers that will tell you, hey, this thing has helped me out flesh out this bit of the game.
It's still work,
but it's not.
It is.
I don't know.
I see it this way: is like a.
It's work to add a third party thing onto the existing game, is what I mean.
It is, yeah, but for me, it's like, I think it's the cost effectiveness, because like, okay, well, I can try to figure this out myself, which will take a bunch of cross referencing and going back and forth and doing all this work, which is doable, but like, let's be real, it's a pain in the ass, and most people don't have the time in the week to do it. Or you can spend 20 minutes online looking some stuff up, checking your 3 options, maybe takes another 20 minutes, and then you have the thing that might not be perfect, and you may have to like futz with based on the setting. But it works pretty well for the most part. I see it a lot more time efficient.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is I feel like it'll be easier for me to just find a game that cooperates with me better than try and ham fist everything up D&D's asshole.
Yes, if you're doing it from the get-go, I agree. But if you like, if there's a situation where you kind of have to change things for a specific scenario, you can't like whole ass change rule sets for one fight.
Oh, you're talking about like if you're trying to do it mid-campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's different.
And I sort of mean it in like, because you're not you're very much, I would rather do it myself because I know exactly what I want. And that's not like an uncommon opinion I've seen in like the RPG, like, mind space. But I think it like there is a very valid reason to just be like, I'm just gonna see what someone else came up with, and if I don't like any of that, then I'll do it my damn self. But at least you'll have the like knowledge of what doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I suppose there's an argument there. I guess for me, I jump straight to I jump to doing it myself first a lot of the time for whatever reason. Like I don't know, for me, I'm like more inclined to to do the work and figure it out myself than like I would rather spend the 30 minutes myself figuring it out than 30 minutes looking for it, you know? Which maybe is not, I don't know. That's just kind of how it just tends to be how I lean, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong for like knowing me though. Like, if I was going to create a system from scratch, it would take me so long because I would overthink the shit out of it. Because it'd be like, oh well, how does this work? How does this work with this? Does that make sense if I implement this thing? What rules are these stepping on the toes of? What am I losing in this? Like.
Well, it's not. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. Although it's not necessarily from scratch. If you are, you are starting with a game. There's that argument there too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I there's also the very common fear of I spent money on this. What if it sucks balls?
Yeah, I mean that's what the
previews are for. You read reviews.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say I hate to be that guy, but that's why you
Yarhar fiddle me D.
No, nothing about the Yarhars, but you share, right? You share the wealth amongst friends. If one of your friends has a book that they bought, and you're like, hey, my guy, you got this, and they're like, yeah, it's not great. You're like, okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a friend who vouches for the product, that's different. Or a friend if you say to a friend, oh, I'm looking for this. Source. Yeah. If you say to a friend, I'm looking for this, and then he like slides the book across the table to you, yeah, sure, that's a different story.
Like most of the time, if because I watch a lot of the Sly Flourish videos, if he recommends a book, I'm most likely gonna look at it as to if like, I don't know, some like, random YouTube comments say it, or like random, like you look on the Dungeons and Dragon Instagram and a lot of people are like, oh, did you hear about this book?
Yeah.
Because like I trust the source.
Well, semi-trust the source, I suppose.
Yeah. Speaking of trusted sources,
I don't know if you guys have actually heard of them or like seen them, but I wanted to try Mr. Rex's. He has like a monster bits to make items and like abilities and shit, and I really wanted to try that out. And this is the perfect time to ask: have you guys like seen it? Have you looked into it all?
I haven't.
Actually, I didn't know that.
Did you? You didn't even have to ask me that, Isaiah.
I know you don't watch him, but like maybe you had heard of it through the grapevine. Matt, I know you watch him like I do. So
I do watch him. Yeah, I know. I actually haven't heard. I'm gonna take a look at it now. I have so many different PDFs from like all over the place that I have for like if I need players to harvest monsters, and it's a simple like thing, so I don't need to go too in depth with it, and I kind of just use that and say whatever. But yeah, no, maybe I'll check it out, because I'll always always looking for new things, new inspirations, and get the ideas flowing and pumping. Like one thing actually I've been using a lot recently whenever players are like fighting monsters, researching monsters, and you can use this as a good example if you are planning DMs out there for like, the players have to go hunt a monster. In Tasha's guide, the whole parlaying with monsters, it's a lot of cool like little information on like, all right, researching a creature, what kind of checks? There's a difference between researching a dragon and researching a fae. Monsters' desires. What are these monsters more likely to like, want? So if you're like hunting an owlbear, it's like, all right, well, owlbears like fucking, they like meat. I'll go find some meat somewhere. So those have been pretty helpful for at least me.
Me trying desperately to pull things away from 5e. Matt constantly pulling in the other direction.
That's right. Get back there. You get back here. Sorry, I'm stuck in my hole. I like it here. It's comfortable. It's
me trying so deeply to I just lost my train of thought.
Nice.
Oops.
Trying to have some diversity in the situation, and Matt says no,
not
more 5e.
No diversity here, brother. We can't do that. Isaiah pulls out a bat. Oh no.
Jesus.
Oh shit! Actually, this randomly came. So, would you guys consider like? So obviously, like monster hunting, go out, investigate, all that jazz, into the woods. What if you wanted to do that for like an urban environment? Would you guys consider like bounty hunting, like a form of monster hunting? Like, hey, there's an evil wizard in the city. Go find them, and it's like, shit.
I don't even think you have to go like so fantasy, right? If we're doing like urban, it's like, where's the crime lord, or the hookup, the distributor, whatever you want to call it. Like, where's this guy? Where has he been? What are the places he likes to hang out at? Who does he talk to? Shit like that. Like, I very much expect us to be doing that in Vampire the Masquerade at some point when we eventually get back and Sam stops trying to create that chaos god in the warp.
Yeah, I mean, so from a, like, if you want to be really technical about it, is hunting the wizard like monster hunting? No. However, thematically, mechanically, fun-wise, absolutely, yes. Hunting, doing a bounty hunt, fucking tracking a bitch down in Blades in the Dark, hunting a goblin in Urban Shadows, fucking looking for the orc camp in the fucking 40K planet. Like, yeah, all that is the same. At the end of the day, like we were saying before, the important part is that journey component. And as long as you have that focus on the journey component, then from a thematic, from a vibe standpoint, if you will, the vibe is the same, right? Like, the target is different, but the vibe, the feel,
the vibe check.
It passes the vibe check. It's the same kind of thing. There's not a lot of difference. Like, if you're playing in a post-apocalypse game, you can have your players hunt down a wanted murderer, and or like a guy in the wasteland who everybody wants to get rid of. And it can be exactly the same as your players hunting down a griffin, right? Like, there's really no difference other than the target and like what you murder it with, At the end of the day, it's the same kind of feel. So yeah, you could totally do that.
Yeah.
And in fact, in an urban style game, it might actually be a little bit easier to keep that campaign tonally on the same track than something like D&D because you don't have that as crazy of a ramp up,
Right. I mean, I said urban mostly because I'm thinking of Waterdeep, but yeah, you can do it in like modern settings. Well.
God damn it, Matt!
Sorry,
Matt's like, what about Waterdeep? And me and Isaiah.
Y'all saw me try, right?
Yeah, no, I did.
I was like, Vampire the Masquerade.
Vampire the Masquerade. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I was thinking.
Listen, I'm in the big boy chair. We sitting in 5e.
I'm about to strap about a metric ton of fucking dynamite to the big boy chair.
My brain went straight to fucking New York City.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Oh, Matt's like, I meant Waterdeep. I fucking cannot with you.
I can't help it. This is where my brain goes.
So, I will say, okay, so Matt,
smack his nuts.
So this is the other thing too. Yeah. Well, I don't know, Matt. Did you have somewhere else you were going?
Go. What were you gonna say?
Okay, so this is the other funny thing about the whole idea of the Monster Hunt, right? Because, so are you guys familiar with? I know, Isaiah, you've heard of this game. I know neither of you have played it, but I guess I'm asking Matt. Are you familiar with Monster of the Week?
That's a video game, or
no? It's a tabletop game. Monster of the Week.
No, I've never heard of it. I've heard the saying "Monster of the Week," but
so Monster of the Week. The saying is talking about shows like fucking, what's it called?
Power Rangers.
Supernatural. Power Rangers, kind of. Yeah, I guess Power Rangers too. Yeah, Monster of the Week just means there's a bad guy for the one episode.
Real quick. I like that we all said completely different shows. You said Supernatural. I said X-Files. He said Power Rangers.
X-Files is a good one too.
I do like that we all had different answers, but I like that me and Josh had very, very similar answers.
Yeah.
And Matt was just
Power Rangers.
Nope.
Well, I will say
that's the first time I ever heard that term too.
Yeah, well, Power Rangers does do the Monster of the Week format, because all that format is we're fighting one monster for 1 week, and the week is one episode, But the funny thing is, I said Supernatural. I've never even watched that show, but I know what it is, obviously.
Yeah, my family's obsessed with it.
Yeah, so the thing. So Monster of the Week. It's a writing term, and the game is indeed named after the writing term. The game itself is Scooby-Doo, by the way, also Monster of the Week. And the reason I mentioned Scooby-Doo is because Monster of the Week is like, what if we took Scooby-Doo and gave Shaggy a gun?
There's actually a comic about that. It's a weird post-apocalypse Scooby-Doo where it's fine. I'm sorry. I just reminded me of that.
Okay, well, that's interesting. But
I love this art of the tentacle monster with giant teeth grabbing people, and then in the background is just a little girl fucking psychic blasting the shit out of it in the back.
Yeah, that's a playbook. You can play like a psychic character.
Nice.
But yes,
use Mind Blast.
Yeah, it's like, what if you gave Shaggy a gun and Scooby a broadsword and Fred a fucking AK-47? Like, it's basically it's Supernatural, right? There's a weird monster, something happened, we're hunting down the monster for the week, and the idea for the RPG is, generally it's supposed to be 1 or 2 sessions per monster for the most part. Obviously you can fuck with that, but that's kind of like the idea. The funny thing about Monster of the Week, and this is why I said, Matt, those the what you said was being nitpicky is actually relevant here, because Monster of the Week is actually not a very good monster hunting game.
Heard this.
Yeah, despite the name and the tone and the vibe, actually not a very good monster hunting game. And you might be thinking.
Well, then.
Yeah, you might be thinking, why? Because Monster of the Week is supposed to play like Power Rangers. At what point did the Power Rangers have to hunt down or investigate the monster or the enemy? Literally never. Literally never.
They go to the bad guy's just there gloating.
Yeah, the bad guy's there. You fight the bad guy.
If you watch Power Rangers SPD, they very specifically have some detective work.
There's a little bit of it, yes, from time to time. But for the most part,
I hate that you didn't even be like, "Shut the fuck up, nerd." You just agreed with me.
Well, I mean, I've watched SPD. I know what you're talking about. I do like SPD. You're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of it, but for the most part, Power Rangers is like, the formula of Power Rangers. Oh, we're doing the teenage high school thing. Oh no, a dude shows up. Oh, we're gonna fight the putties, but not Power Ranger up yet. Oh no, the real monster showed up. Now we Power Ranger up and beat his ass. And now he's big. Now we get the Megazord, right? That's always the vibe. The vibe check is always that general flow. Monster of the Week is more like Power Rangers in that the point of the game is not the complicated investigation. The point of the game is the museum security guards got murdered in the night. We need you guys to figure it out. You go to the location, you get a couple of clues, you find out where the monster is, you fight the monster. The point of the game is to focus on the group dynamic and the sort of overcoming the challenge of the scary thing or whatever. And much like D&D, Monster of the Week has a move in it that basically just tells you all the information you need to know with one single roll. So because you just solve the problem with one roll, it's not a very good investigation game. But it is a good monster killing game. But it's not a good monster hunting game. And that's where you're getting that funky... That's what I mean, where it's like, it seems pedantic, but it's kind of not pedantic. And if you want to try and figure out, will this game be good for a monster hunting style game, you have to really... You got to dig a little deep, and you got to know what you're looking for. It's tricky, you know what I mean?
So you're saying I should just take Monster of the Week and just slam it into my 5e?
No, not saying this.
I'm just saying that I'm going to murder you. I just
to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So in Monster of the Week, one of your moves is Investigate a Mystery. This is the investigation move. By the way, every other single move in the game has nothing to do with investigating. This is the only investigation move. There's one.
Hey, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's one investigation move. And what this does is, when you investigate a mystery, roll plus your sharp. That's a stat. On a 10 plus, you get 2 hold. On a 7 to 9, you get 1 hold. 1 hold can be spent to ask the keeper, which is what the GM's called, one of the following questions. What happened here? What sort of creature is it? What can it do? What can hurt it? Where did it go? What was it going to do? What is being concealed here? So basically, you can rock up, roll your dice. If you get over a 10, you can just say, what kind of creature is it and where did it go? And then the GM will say, it's a werewolf. It went downtown. And then you go downtown and fight the werewolf. Right? There's not really a lot of investigating there. You're just doing the roll to sort of get the answers. So that's where it becomes that fine. It's a fine line. Don't get me wrong. It is a very fine line. But that's kind of what I mean about the move just answers the problem for you. D&D has a similar thing where, you know, GM, is there any trapdoors? Roll investigation. No, there's no trapdoors, right? You don't really have to. That's about it. That's usually all you have to do. Comma, unless you're playing older editions. Right? Because older editions, when you entered the room in the dungeon, you were expected as a player to very thoroughly describe, I checked the shelf. The GM tells you there's towels on the shelf. I check under every towel. The GM says there is nothing under the towels on the first shelf. I check the second shelf. I check under the towels on the second shelf. The GM tells you, you should have checked with your 10-foot pole because on the second shelf, there's a snake under the towels. You get bit for 12 poison damage. You know, like in older editions, you were expected basically to describe and take it very slow and be really thorough, which is more of what I'm talking about, you know? Yeah. And it was like, you only rolled in older editions when it was like for a very specific purpose. You know, like it was like, you like disarming a trap was a roll because the rogue had an ability that was for disarming traps. You know, that was when you made rolls. Checks were like not as much of a thing, but nowadays they're more of a thing. So, you know, you could essentially run your 5e game like that if you wanted. You just have to kind of, you know, hit
it from the get-go.
Yeah, you got to hit it from the get-go. You got to get that player buy-in early, because otherwise your players are going to be like, what do you mean the perception check doesn't tell me everything I need to know? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely fallen into that
problem. Yeah.
That I'm not almost. I'm 2.5 years in-ish. And like when I try to be like, we're gonna change up the system, my players are obviously like, what are you talking about?
It's hard to do.
This was an idea.
It's
really, you gotta talk to them before.
It's hard. Yeah, it's really hard to do in the middle of a campaign when you've sort of established this is how we do things, you know, and then to be like, all right, well, we're going to do things very differently all of a sudden. It's like, even if it's a really cool idea, even if players are really on board with your cool idea, it's real tricky to be like, all right, just drop everything we were doing before. We're going to do a new thing now, you know, or maybe not drop everything, but drop a lot of the preconceived notions you had from before. We're doing it differently now, you know? And I don't really know. I like, there probably is a way to make it, make that transition work, but I can't think of anything. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? Let me know if you all have any success with that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely give it I'm definitely going to have to give it a try because, Matt, I'm not going to say anything because our editor's in my game, but that stat block you sent me,
oh no.
Yeah, so I'm merging the original and that one together, and I might be giving it some extra goodies.
Extra
thing. It's gonna get. I told Josh about it yesterday. It's a little mean,
but in a fun way.
Yeah, it's kind of a piss take at some point, and there's 6 of them, and they're level 11, and they've got 3 high level NPCs.
Oh, the players. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the thing.
No, the players.
Yeah,
You're throwing 11 of them.
Yo, can you imagine if I 6 of those fucking things at my play? Yo,
bro,
wild. That would actually be a fucking piss take.
Yeah, that would be. That makes kind of funny.
And then I throw 6 of them, and then fucking 5 get killed by a meteor.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm very excited to see how that goes. Because either it'll die like a bitch, or it's gonna clap so many cheeks.
Yeah,
I can't wait to hear that.
I just remembered something. So a little while ago, the lovely Dale Kingsmill, YouTube channel Monarch Factory, who I've mentioned many times before, she did a series of videos. I think I told you about this one, Isaiah. She did a couple of videos about fighting a specific, rather famous monster in D&D and how she would make it like more interesting, more iconic. She did one on a dragon, she did one on a beholder, and she did one on a Displacer Beast. And the video she did on a Displacer Beast was, she was basically like, well, if you want to make a Displacer Beast sort of fun and iconic, probably your best bet is to make it like hunting an actual jaguar, right? Like imagine if you're in the African savannah hunting a jaguar or a lion or something like that, right? Because it's a Displacer Beast, it's a weird panther monster. That makes sense. So she essentially designed this crazy mini game where it was a 3x3 grid, and the Displacer Beast would move 1 square, and then the players could move in 1 square, and it was like you were taking turns and moving the Displacer Beast throughout the area, and then the players could go into the various squares and make checks to try and figure out what direction the Displacer Beast was going in, and then they could try and cut it off so it couldn't run away from them, right? And it was a really cool, like, fun idea for how to make this interesting mini game to, like, make the hunting a crazy magical animal aspect interesting, and especially because a Displacer Beast is, literally a giant cat. The problem is, like we were just saying before, if you were not doing something like that prior, it might be a little tricky to get your players on board for this crazy mini game you've designed for one boss fight. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, man, I might like to do that, but how do I get everyone to buy in?
Yeah. Oh my God. You want to talk about how to buy in? So I like skill challenges in my games. I like the idea of them. I like when I see them executed well. Can I tell you that I think I've done 5 or 6 skill challenges in my game, and they have always felt like such a nightmare to run. And I don't know why. Right? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. They feel terrible, and it feels like my players aren't too into it.
Like boring or like.
No, just I give them the usual, like, everyone can make us. You have to make X amount of successes before you make X amount of fails. Each, you can only do one kind of check once, so only one of you can do investigation. Only one of you can do this. Only one of you can do that. And I feel like the first 2 people, because I guess they have the most options, they go really well, and then it just stalls out so bad, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing wrong. Maybe I'm not describing it enough. Maybe I'm not.
Maybe it's a situation? Question mark?
Maybe. Yeah. I know one of them I had to just retcon it because
it was oh fuck, really?
Yeah, because I really hadn't thought it through enough. I thought it was something that I could do on the fly as opposed to something I had to kind of think through.
Oh my God, no. Yeah.
And it ended in disaster. So I literally was like, all right, y'all, what is the thing Matt Koba says? Fair game?
Yeah.
I basically just call fair game, be like, you know what, this is on me. I'm not going to punish you guys because I bollocks to this skill checkup. So we'll call it for the night and try this again next week, and with actual with some real rules in there.
Yeah, whenever I do a skill challenge, I literally go do what Matt said in his videos, where he goes in for every skill that the players are proficient in. I come up with a scenario of all right, how do they succeed with that skill? Mm-hmm. Most of the time, parties aren't going to have every single skill proficiency, so there's a couple you don't have to do. which is nice. Like, let's say you're playing a game and no one has animal handling, then that's one skill that you don't have to worry about.
That's way more work than I do.
It's kind of rough because if you only allow them to use skills they're proficient in, it kind of kills the like, just try shit, throw shit at the wall. Because like, while limitations are good, skill checks innately don't have much of a groundwork to start with. So if you
wait, what?
Well, like, there's no the idea of a skill check being like, be creative to solve the problem. You're sort of, I'm trying to, you're making a skyscraper with weak foundations. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have enough underneath it to start implying all these rules because you're just making the camel's back easier to break.
Part of me, it feels like I disagree, but I'm trying to think of like, because I'm looking at like the player's handbook stuff, and they give like, again, this is what a skill challenge means, which again, they don't really say skill challenge, or not skill challenge, sorry. They don't say skill check in 5e. It's an ability check, because anytime a book says like, make an arcana check, they don't just say that. They say make a intelligence arcana check. And then, you know, they do the same thing with every fucking skill. So it's never a skill check. It's always an ability check. But I don't know. I feel like it's pretty like fleshed out enough that, again, the DM can jump off of, and, you know, the players and the DM can like think of creative ways to do certain skills if you want to run a skill challenge, or if you're asking for an ability check. But maybe I don't know. Maybe
so that part I agree with you with. It's the only letting players use checks that they're proficient in, because if you have a situation where a party has several overlapping skills and you do the whole like the pretty common one, right, which is like each player can only do one kind of skill once. Like, you all can't, if you're trying to stop a bomb from going off, you can't all try to hack the computer.
Right. Yeah.
So if you have like one major limitation, which is only one kind of skill per use, and then you have the only skills you're proficient in, that then they go like, well, all three of us have proficiency in investigation. What do we do? You know? And then you have the one person's like, well, the problem is I have proficiency in animal handling. This is fucking useless, you know? So for me, I usually just let them throw whatever the fuck at the wall, and I'll adjust the DC accordingly. That's the easy part, but like it's the effect of the, right, like, they do a thing. What is the effect of that? So like the one that went really wrong for me was they were trying to fix a failing cryo tube. Like, there was a character frozen in ice, and they were trying to save him because the thing was failing. And like, I was trying to figure out like what each thing would do, what the skills would correlate to in the moment, and how that would affect things. And if they failed certain things, how would that affect other things? And I just sort of drowned in it, you know? We're definitely not on the topic of hunting monsters. Although we kind of are.
No, it's fine.
I was going to say, we've gone into an interesting, a little bit of a interesting rabbit hole. Although skill challenges are a good way to kind of do the monster hunting thing. So it's not useless. I want to posit a question on you, though, Isaiah. So you say you don't feel like the skill challenge situation is working. What about the skill challenges we've done in my game that you were a participant in? Did those also feel not great?
No, those felt fine. I don't know what it is. Like, maybe for me, I find them easier because I'm a really like proactive player. Like, I will just throw literally everything in this kitchen sink at the wall to get what I want. Yeah. So maybe you need like a very specific kind of player, and if your character players are more reactive, maybe that's my problem. A lot of my players are really reactive about things, which isn't a problem at all, but it does sort of change the way you have to think about it.
Well, it's a problem for this scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't have skill challenges require you to tackle the problem on your own, and because the GM basically goes, here's the problem, what are you doing? So yes, your players do need to be proactive about it, which is absolutely part of it. I think the other thing to keep in mind, though, is the situation needs to be skill challenges tend to work best if the situation is the kind of thing that you can tackle from lots of angles. If the situation is too tightly focused, you're not really doing a skill challenge. You're just maybe doing a sort of series of checks or something like that. Because, so like the cryotube example you just gave, that probably isn't really a skill challenge situation because it's really focused and only probably one to two people could reasonably do anything about it. So it becomes this kind of like, no one knows what to do because it probably should have just been a couple of checks in a row from one or two people. The difference would be if it's like, oh, the cryotube's breaking and leaking nitrogen. Also, the room is on fire. Now you've broadened the situation out. Some players can deal with the cryotube situation. Some players can try and debate the fire or try and find an exit, right? I think that's a big part of it, is sort of widening things out.
Yeah, that's so definitely a bit. I could.
Because you gotta be able to come at it from multiple angles, right? Because that's the point of a skill challenge is there's multiple ways to solve the problem. So it has to be open enough. Which
and I thought I was because because I saw it as a lot of the archetypes for my players of the party, right? It's like you have the mechanic, you've got the scientist or the tinkerer, the medic, the firebird, the bravo basically, and the hunter. So I figured that it's like a scientific, mechanical, medical, and potentially, because it's an ice problem, the person who's special with fire, like whose whole thing is fire, would be really good, which would, leave me with two blanks that I couldn't do much with. But if they were like willing to posit an idea, I'd be willing to help. Or if they wanted to like assist with a check,
sure. I think the problem
maybe it's because I was too specific. I told them that there were options, but in my head I had like an idea of what I wanted them to do.
I mean, that's definitely part of it. You don't want to come up with too many. You're gonna come up with a few by, it's impossible not to come up with a few in your head, right? Like that's just gonna happen. But yes, you don't want to have too many solutions that you're too in love with. That definitely causes a problem. But the other thing with that scenario is the cryotube thing is like, I can't think of a way, for example, I can't think of a good reasonable way that more than only like two people could really help that scenario, right? Because it's such a focused thing. Like, we need to fix this one specific thing. I can't think of how multiple people could really get in on that. So I think that's part of the issue there. And then, if you came up with a bunch of solutions preemptively in your head and got a little too married to them, that could definitely like lay on top of the problem. Like, for example, if you remember, you guys had to rescue the like civilians from that one burning building in my game not that long ago. I didn't really have any notion about how you were going to go about it. The only thing is, I know the objective was get the civilians out of the building, and I was going to let you do it basically however the fuck you wanted. And one of the ideas I thought of was, Kai could shatter the wall and make a big opening, which he did not do, which is fine, but it was an idea I had, but I wasn't married to it to the point where I said no to other stuff, And then when you were like, can I just run the fuck in there? I was like, yeah, sure, go for it.
Yo, so I bet you LP is super hyped to hear that, because in my head I was like, this man gonna bring this fucking building down if he shatters. I swear to God, I'll kill him.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a thing I thought of. But yeah, it's like the trick with that scenario is the goal is get the people out. The method for reaching that goal is really open-ended. Like there's lots of ways you could potentially get the people out of the building. And it's not too complicated of a scenario where you're like it's not so complex that you couldn't reasonably think of solutions, Like if you start getting really nitty gritty, it becomes hard to think of solutions. If the situation becomes more and more becomes more complex, it gets more specific, then it becomes harder to think of solutions. So being like, you have to rescue the people from the burning building out of this one specific window, and they have to land on this barrel of hay. It's like, all right, now we're starting to get too specific. Now there's too many constraints, as opposed to just get them out. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering if that's maybe part of your problem.
Maybe.
And then in a monster hunting context,
There we go.
because I did have this thought, you know, you can't say to your play, like, you can't be, it can't be a situation where you say, all right, the players have to study the basilisk blood in order to figure out how to defeat the basilisk. What you have to, like, right, that's too specific. But instead, to make it fun and satisfying, and to make it feel like everybody else is having an effect and a chance, you have to say, you know, the players need to discover that the basilisk has a specific weakness. How they do it, you could use its blood, you could use its saliva, maybe there's a hint in what it ate, right? Like, you could kind of keep a couple of options in your brain floating around. And then when the skill challenge comes up and they're doing the hunting and the investigating, you could be open to potential solutions they throw towards you. And that's how you make that going. And again, that's going from the unknown, or going from the known to the unknown. We know there's a problem. What is the problem? All right, now we're learning what the problem is. Now we're back into the known area. You know? So, yeah, it's like... Yeah, you just can't constrain it too much, I think is the probably the biggest key. If not being in your game, so I'm kind of guessing, but you know, sort of taking.
Just stream a video for us, and we will judge.
No.
And we'll
no. I ain't wild.
Me and Josh will watch your video.
I'm not sitting there watching Isaiah's session for 4 hours. That's weird.
To continue, or we will say stop. And then seriously, you must stop, or penalties will be enforced.
Or you will be shot.
If no one gets that Tenacious D reference, thank you.
Oh no, I did not.
I know. I figured no one would. Actually, so running back around too with monster hunting and stuff, thinking about we've all seen, you guys have seen the Z Bashu video, the making monsters more witchery.
No.
Right? No?
No.
So Z Bashu, really good D&D YouTube animator. He made a video on like trying to make monsters more witchery, on like trying to do like a monster hunting type of deal. And I feel like this is kind of like getting into monster hunting, but also just monster design in general. Because I feel like more monsters should be like this, where he was saying like, make monsters a little harder, give them a couple extra resistances, but then give every fucking monster a vulnerability. And it's like, do you guys feel like, kind of like side tangent also, do you feel like monsters should be like that? Like more monsters should have like more resistances, but like have a weakness, like a general weakness. Like I think he gave an example of like an Umber Hulk in the video. Mm-hmm. And I forgot exactly what the weakness it was. Maybe it was radiant damage, because Umber Hulks are mostly like Underdark dwelling creatures in the light and everything. Like,
so,
you think that would help with monster design in general for 5e, or in monster hunting? Like you're going out tracking a creature, you find it, you do some research on its favorite food, all that jazz, and then you fight them when you get to the fight of the monster, and the monster's tough as nails.
Yeah. So okay. I don't know if I want to get into the whole would this help 5e monster design in general, because that feels like a bigger can of worms that needs its own episode. Yeah.
Or I guess do you like the idea for monster hunts of buffing the monsters? I guess just to
so the topic. Thing. Okay. So here's the thing. If you want to do it for the monster hunt thing, I get what he's getting at, right? Because yes, if you want to make your game more witchery, then yes, giving all of your monsters a specific vulnerability, you know, radiant damage, fire damage, bludgeoning, you know, so on and so forth. That is a thing that happens in The Witcher that is a thing that will sort of reinforce the vibe. There's a couple of things you got to keep in mind though. First of all, vulnerability and resistances, they're not that exciting because they're really binary, right? Once you find out the skeleton is weak to radiant damage, you're just going to use your radiant damage thing and that's all that's going to happen, right? Maybe 1 or 2 turns, you'll try and figure it out. And then once you figure it out, it's back to business as usual. Because the vulnerability and resistance, system within 5e is very binary. It's either yes or no, right? So it's not too terribly complicated. So yes, it'll be fun when your cleric hits the Umber Hulk with Searing Flame, and then, oh shit, the Umber Hulk got that double radiant damage and freaked out. It'll be cool for a turn, and then your cleric will be excited to be like, yeah, I can use my radiant shit. But once you figure it out, business goes back to normal. So there's that. The other thing is, because a lot of monsters are not, because there's not that many monsters with vulnerabilities in 5e right now, the balancing is, the balancing assumes when you're fighting a skeleton that the skeleton isn't necessarily, well, skeleton's a bad example because they're weak to bludgeoning, so let's go with the Umber Hulk example instead. The game assumes when you're fighting the Umber Hulk that the Umber Hulk does not have any vulnerabilities, right? That's part of its, so part of its assumed power level is you're not hitting it with any kind of double damage. However, if you start throwing in vulnerabilities on creatures that didn't have it before, you could run into some kind of funky balancing issue where a monster that would normally be kind of scary is suddenly kind of a punk ass bitch, Like, for example, if you're fighting Mind Flayers and then suddenly the Mind Flayers are weak to fire damage, they're not so tough no more,
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to make it to the story of the monsters. So, fire resistant Mind Flayer is a little weird.
Fire vulnerable, but yeah, that was just
vulnerable. Sorry,
I'm just saying because fire damage is really common. So if you made Mind Flayers weak to fire damage, you get into this. You sort of unintentionally nerf Mind Flayers.
Right. Well, that's
real quick. Sorry, I think this is where the Z-Bashu thing comes into play really well. Where it's like
that's literally what I'm talking about.
Oh, are you? My bad. My brain is fucking fried right now.
No, it's all good. What were you gonna say? I do have some for the Z-Bashu video as well.
Yeah, well, we're probably gonna say the same thing then, right? Which is the vulnerabilities might make it look like a punk bitch, but if you make it resistant to all physical damage, then that barbarian, everybody else other than the druid who has Conjure Flame, well, kind of fucked, isn't it? Like,
I think he says in the video, it's like give it like 3 or 4 extra resistances, and then 1 specific vulnerability. So, which, if it's something like fire damage, then it's like, DM, can I wrap a cloth over my greatsword and then light it on fire with some oil and some shit? Can I do fire damage then? And it's like, yeah, sure. It's Monster Hunt. Yeah,
sure. Maybe. And yes, that's a thing you can do, and that's fine. All I'm saying is you just have to keep those sorts of things in mind. I'm not saying that they're good or bad. I'm just saying you have to be aware when you start fucking with resistances and vulnerabilities. You start potentially, not always, but potentially fucking with balance, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
However, I think there's a better way to do this. And the game kind of already does it. Just not that often. So rather than say, this creature is weak to fire damage, or maybe this creature is like, if you grapple it, it can't break out, right? Like give it, rather than something like that, where it's like a very binary disbad. Instead, what I think you should do is give monsters either powerful abilities or powerful nerfs based on tactics. So a good example is the Banshee. So you know how there's the Banshee's Wail, right? An ability that a lot of people mention?
Yeah.
Right? So the Banshee lets out a wail, everybody makes a DC 13 con save. If you fail, you're fucked.
Right.
However, there's a caveat to that ability, which is that if the Banshee is out in sunlight, she can't use that ability. It's where the fuck is it? Of course, now I'm trying to read and talk at the same time, which is a bad idea. But
right, because like, how many games are you fighting a Banshee in broad daylight that's not out in the dark woods or in a dungeon or a graveyard or some shit? I don't think I've ever heard of someone fighting a ghost or anything in broad daylight.
So, it's part of the Banshee releases a mournful wail provided she isn't in sunlight. And yes, sure, Matt. But the thing is, if your players find that information out, now, right? Like, let's say they find out, the Banshee can't use her wail in sunlight. So now we have a little bit of a leg up because she can't use her most dangerous ability if we can get her in sunlight. Now the players say, okay, well, now that we know that, rather than just a binary, it's weak to fire damage, so we're just going to hit it with Firebolt a lot. Now instead we say, it's weak. It has a specific weakness that nerfs a specific ability. We have to change our whole tactics to try and get it to be in sunlight. So maybe somebody casts sunlight, or maybe we wait till the daytime. Maybe we lure it out of the dungeon. Like, all of a sudden now there's new layers to the fight. There's new strategy they have to employ, and that is generally going to be more interesting than just saying, it's weak to this or resistant to that. You know what I mean?
What about like auras? Like if a monster has if you touch the monster,
aura,
you take damage or something.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Or another good example is the Bodak.
The meaner Banshee.
Yeah, the Bodak takes 5 radiant damage if it starts its turn in sunlight. And also, the other thing is, right, so you're like, that's just a weakness. And you're like, that's just, that's the same as vulnerability. However, the Bodak has the Aura of Annihilation, right? The Aura of Annihilation, if you're within 30 feet of it, it deals necrotic damage to you. So now you have to play those two things against each other to try and be like, all right, can we get it in sunlight and also try and not get killed by the Aura? You know what I mean? So I think that's the more interesting way to go about it, is rather than just throwing out vulnerabilities, give them weird, in sunlight, it can't do this. When it's on fire, trolls is another one. When they're on fire, they can't regenerate, right? That is more, that's a little bit more fun and interesting than just saying you deal double damage, Yeah. But my favorite one, I feel like Isaiah probably knows what I'm about to say. About to mention my favorite monster, and it's only CR 1/2. Do you know what it is, Isaiah?
Usually, maybe. Right now, no.
Okay. The Skulk.
What the fuck is that?
Oh,
bro?
the invisible.
The
Skulk.
Skulk.
I know what you're talking about. This thing's funny.
This thing is fucking dope. You might say, well, why? And I would tell, well, let me tell you. The Skulk is invisible permanently, like an invisible stalker. And you're like, okay, well, that's not that interesting. You can circumvent the Skulk with 3 different methods. 1, humanoid children under the age of 10 can see the Skulk. The Skulk appears in reflective surfaces like mirrors. And what's the other one? The Skulk appears as a dim, translucent form in the light of a candle made by fat rendered from a corpse whose identity is unknown. Granted,
what the fuck does that even?
All right, that one's
basically what that's saying is if you make a candle if you dig up some guy's grave and you make a candle out of his fat, you can use it to see the Skull. Granted, is that a little wacky? Absolutely. But that takes suddenly the enemy, right? This enemy's really dangerous because it's CR 1/2, right? So if you're level 1 and you're fighting like maybe 2 of these things, but they're permanently invisible, pretty dangerous, right? Pretty hard to deal with. Also, it does 1d4 plus 4 slashing and 1d6 necrotic damage. So it deals quite a bit of damage at CR 1/2. So you're like, fuck, this thing's really hard to deal with. It only has 18 hit points though. So if you can reveal it and 14 AC, which is not that high. So if you can see it, you can kill it pretty fast, but you have to be able to see it, right? So that's a more interesting way to do the monster weakness, because it's like, no, it's not just it's weak to a type of damage or it takes double damage or whatever. Now it's like, no, we have to like find a child, protect this kid, and then have the kid tell us where the monster is while we're fighting, right? Like now you're on this whole other level of like crazy. And then imagine, if you will, I want to use this monster so bad, and I'm going to at some point in my life. Imagine, if you will, you're going and you're investigating, like, oh, this person got killed. Nobody's seen any tracks. Nobody saw a culprit. all they have is the dead guy with slash marks in his chest. Nobody knows what happened. Like, nobody saw anything because this thing's invisible. And then some little 10-year-old girl is like, I saw something. You're like, what? And then the little 10-year-old child has to, or like maybe even younger, maybe they're like 5, so they barely even know what's going on. So this little 5-year-old has to try and explain that they saw, it saw a spooky monster like rip a dude's chest open. And now you have to be like, okay, now we have to bring along this 5-year-old girl to investigate and try and find this thing and then also fight it, which is dangerous. And we want to try and protect the kid. It adds crazy layers. That's a Witcher enemy. You know what I'm saying?
Can you imagine the conversation you need to have with that kid's parents?
It's crazy. That's what I mean.
I'm willing to bet you money that there's no way in hell they're letting you take that child.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to take your child to hunt a monster.
That's what I'm saying.
World, I swear.
It becomes a role play opportunity. It becomes tactically interesting. There's some morality attached to it. Like, there's so many layers that one monster could potentially have.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's how you should do it. If you want to have the Red Baron questline in The Witcher 3, you have to have this like complicated, so to get the Lubberkin to come out, we have to dig up your dead baby's corpse, and then we have to bury it a certain way, and like all that crazy shit. And then, the Lubberkin, you can only hit it when it's in the like light of the lantern or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that's how you really get in there. Doing a little vulnerability every once in a while, sure, that's fine. But the fucking skulk, you want to make your players like hunt a monster. That's how you fucking get there. And essentially, the secret, guys, is everything's a puzzle and everything's a dungeon. That's the secret, right? Every monster hunt is a dungeon. Instead of rooms, you have, points of evidence. And it's a puzzle. That's, make the fight a puzzle. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, yes, Zbashu's on the right track, but I think he sort of missed the mark a little bit, is basically what I would say.
I feel like I'm not doing it extreme justice, because definitely it's one of those like it's like literally a 5-minute video.
Right, yeah. You can mix the two too, right? Like, you can combine both methods. Like, sometimes, it's just finding a vulnerability. Sometimes it's finding a specific ability's weakness. You know what I mean?
I think he even went into like finding like the monster's favorite food, or what they, like a bunch
that kind of shit.
Normally done, doing research, which I like. It's kind of side tangent from the Zbashu stuff as well, and getting onto like just before we wrap up, like. This would be like kind of like how you were talking about in Cyberpunk and other games, net running or hacking is like its own separate mini game.
Yeah.
Would this make like that for Rangers for 5e, where it's like, finally, I have a thing I can do with my ranger powers. I can hunt the monster.
This is the problem with Ranger in 5e. No. And you want to know why, Matt?
Why?
Because Ranger abilities are not about exploring and hunting. Ranger abilities are about skipping the exploring and the hunting, right? Because
isn't it just making the exploring a little easier? Mostly, ignoring difficult terrain.
Right, and that's the problem. A lot of the stuff is so binary, so it's like, Ranger, you just don't have to deal with this problem, which is not interesting. So, as much as it seems cool, like, my ranger's going to get something to do, what's going to happen is your ranger's going to have an ability that just lets him circumvent/ignore the puzzle and just solve it instantaneously. So it's like, fuck. And the 5e had this is not a ranger specific problem. This is a 5e game design problem, where a lot of things have an ability to just, this is a problem in the game, your ability just lets you ignore it. For example, the ability where it's like, you're a warforged, so you don't have to eat or breathe. Like, this is a mechanic, you just get to ignore it. You know what I mean? And it gets used quite a lot in 5e. So, can it be something cool for your ranger? It could be, but as the ranger is designed right now, it's probably, unfortunately, not going to be unless you do some extra work. And sort of talk to your ranger player up front and be like, hey, listen, so we might have to adjust some of your abilities to make it so you don't just get like free W's all the time or something like that, you know, like whatever it would be. But I mean, it could be, but you know,
perhaps one day.
as far as making an entire mini game, depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the execution.
Right.
Which is or as you would say, Matt, it depends.
Yep.
Which is
It does indeed. That's the
it.
slogan for 5e. It depends.
yeah, right.
Wizard of the Coast, hire me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess any last closing thoughts, Isaiah?
My
Monster
existence is
Hunter?
pain.
Pain? Yeah. It's just
That's all I got.
Nothing.
nothing, just seething.
Coping, seething, malding. Yes.
Oh, God.
You want a smoothie or?
Bro, I would love a smoothie with an unhealthy amount of fucking rum in it. Like,
Yeah, actually, so
I said a
driving
smoothie,
home
not a
from
milkshake.
Virginia, we stopped at a 7-Eleven. I did the Coca-Cola, blueberry, raspberry, green apple, like just doing the thing where you mix all the flavors in one slushie.
Animal.
Fucking amazing.
Animal.
So good.
I can't, I literally cannot judge. I do the same shit whenever I go to a fucking place that has Slurpees or smoothies.
I'm
I
surrounded
don't drink soda.
I'm-
Slushies for some reason just like
surrounded
hit
by
that, like,
animals.
core in my- yeah, I'm just like, yes. Give me
Surrounded.
them ice.
Somebody save me. I'm surrounded by savages.
Especially when you got like 5 different Mountain Dew slushies and you're like, I'm just going to put them all in there. It's all the same
Yeah,
thing. It's all just
it's
pure
all the same
sugar.
flavor. Yeah.
Oh,
Those-
It's
yeah,
different
the-
colored sugar.
Yeah, everyone that drinks Mountain Dew and is like, no, I only like the red one. They're all the same. They taste the same.
I don't
Like this one's cherry. No, it's not.
have a response to this.
You clearly didn't grow up with people who drank Mountain Dew all day long.
I did not know.
I hung around too many people that drank Mountain Dew all day long. It was
No,
not
I
a good
drank-
time.
That's
I just
really
drank canned Minute Maid lemonades.
that's really unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mountain Dews, so yeah, I guess yeah. So I said no final words for hunting monsters and what general closing statements.
Monster cool.
Monster cool. Monster hunting cool. Joshua, what do you think? Is monster hunting cool? Is
I
monsters
feel like
cool?
I've talked way too much this episode, so just refer back to all the shit I said.
I was surprised. You were originally like, I don't want to talk this episode.
Yeah.
I know. I know. This is
Yeah,
one
guys.
of those topics I've thought about a lot.
Hey guys, monster cool. I'll just end with this little advice for DMs. Literally just look through the monster manual. Whatever like piques your interest, just pick it and just there you go. Just run with that.
Whatever
You know,
piques
it's
your
like-
pee-pee.
Yeah, I mean, whatever gets your pee hard, whatever, it's like you look at the flip
Or
through
your
the pages
hoo-ha.
and you're like,
We
ooh,
don't judge.
Displacer Beast, look at that. Oh man, I gotta use that in my game. Just do it. Just don't be like, I need a monster, it needs to fit in this thing. Nah, fuck you. Find a monster, then make it fit. Just the jank. Just
Make
to
it fit
shove
up
it
your
in
butthole.
there. Just
Nah,
shove
please,
it way
I
up your
don't.
butt, Morty.
Way
and
up your
it'll
butt.
fit.
Way up your butt.
I
Way up
really,
the-
I can't even.
I need that seed of
Y'all in control of my audio this time. I can't. Nothing I can do.
Uh-huh.
I have to just sit here and take this.
Way up your butt, Morty.
all the way up. I need that seed.
I hate that fucking show.
But thank you guys for joining us on this very scuffy, brain-numbing edition of the Sessions Canceled podcast. I don't know why I keep saying edition, like fucking 5e.
I mean, 60.
6e, yeah, 6.5e.
6.5e.
Do me, everyone out there in the universe, do me a favor. Do the Wizards of the Coast survey for 1D&D and just keep saying, please change the name for the love of God. Don't call it 1D&D.
1D&D is not
gonna
it's a working title. It's just like
yeah, I
D&D
know.
Next. It's not the fucking name.
I know. I just hope it doesn't stick.
It's not gonna stick.
Yeah, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and subscribe
No,
to Netflix and
No. No.
Netflix. Wow, I'm shot. All right,
Matt, you want me to do it?
Give us a like on the YouTube.
Matt?
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on all podcast platforms and give us a thumbs up on Spotify. It really helps the platform.
There's no
you know what I'm
thumbs
saying?
on Spotify, Matt.
Isn't it the thumb? Give us a
No.
5-star
Oh
on iTunes.
No, it stars on fucking
I'm
Spotify, Matt. Oh my god.
I'm so bad. Go to those websites, check us out. Post a comment in the description below.
Oh my god.
I don't know what else.
My man
Check
said,
out my MySpace.
I'm going home. I'll see y'all later.
he
I'm out of here.
said subscribe on Netflix. I'm hitting stop. I can't.